Hey guys, what's going on? It's Slava P. I'm here with another prison story. First of all, I want to thank you guys so much for liking, subscribing, commenting on any of the videos that I've done so far. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different for you, so bear with me. I'm going to be talking to you specifically about a minimum security prison. Now, you probably know that I spent 28 months in a federal facility for a nonviolent drug crime. You could read all about it in my book, but I want to talk to you about the best time that I spent in jail, and that was minimum security. So there's three minimum security facilities in Ontario. There's Collins Bay Minimum, there's Joyceville Minimum, which is known as Pittsburgh, and then there's Fenbrook Minimum, which is also known as Beaver Creek. So I got to go to Pittsburgh, and then I put in for a transfer to Beaver Creek, which I'll be explaining about why that happened. So I have a pretty good idea of how they work, and I'm here to tell you guys all about it. So let's start with Pittsburgh. Now, if you look on any map of a federal facility, you will notice that there is kind of a small cul-de-sac neighborhood area right beside every big watchtower, double fenced, white, blocky, chalky prison. That's actually minimum security. The idea of minimum security is for lifers who have spent something like 20 years in jail to kind of figure out how to reacclimate themselves to society so that when they're let out, we don't have a replay of what happened to that guy from Shawshank Redemption who couldn't figure out how to bag groceries, so we don't want that. So we're going to do minimum security. We're going to teach people how to cook. We're going to teach people how to socialize. And we're going to teach people how to make money. How do they do that? Well, when you're in minimum security, you're guaranteed a job. This job can be anything from polishing doorknobs to make sure that they don't have COVID on them, filling up hand sanitizer, working on the actual prison itself to do like yard upkeep, take out the trash, plow the snow, stock up the canteen, stock up the grocery store. Personally, I delivered mail, which was like incredibly easy. You could also work at the library. You can be pretty much any job that they don't want to pay someone a salary for. They will just get an inmate to do it. Inmates make about $6.90 a day on the high end of the spectrum. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but you also have to remember that your room and board is taken care of, and that grocery budget that you get doesn't come out of your actual paycheck. So on top of getting $6.90 every day on the high end, you also get about $52 a week for groceries. And this kind of varies. As I understand, it went up a little bit because of COVID. It might go up again because of all the inflation. I'm not sure where it stands right now, but the idea is you have money to buy groceries. Now, I actually kept the link and the pieces of paper that tell you how much every grocery item is and how much every canteen item is, and I'm going to be putting it in the description below if you want to take a look at it. But the groceries are not chump change. You know, you can buy everything from beefsteak to chicken to, you can buy fruits, vegetables, peanut butter, mayonnaise, pretty much anything that you need to cook something or bake something can be bought on the grocery store. Items that are a little bit more luxurious, like shrimp and, pepperonis and Delissio pizzas, that's all on the canteen, and your canteen doesn't come out of your grocery money. Those are two different things. Your canteen money, that's where that $6.90 goes to every week, every 2 weeks that you get paid. That money also goes to the Inmate Welfare Committee, which is made up of two guys that are voted in. Think of it kind of like a prisoners' union that represents all the prisoners when they're in jail. If anybody has a problem, they go to the inmate committee, and then the inmate committee will escalate that problem up to the warden or whoever else is in charge. The idea being that not everybody feels the need to go up to the office to complain about something, because if you are seen talking to the cops a lot in jail, that is not very good for you. So that's where your $6.90 goes. It goes mostly to the inmate committee and also to junk food, unless you decide to be very frivolous and save up some money for your release. It would just be held in a separate account for you, and once you're released from jail, you get it in the form of cash or a check. So, that being said, What does the inmate committee do with your money? Good question. Two main things. They will upkeep the facilities as they see fit. For example, if everybody's complaining about the fact that the tennis court, I know there's a tennis court, if the tennis court needs work, the money needed to do that work does not come out of the CSC or the federal budget. Okay, taxpayers are not paying for things like that. That money comes out of the money that the prisoners give to the inmate committee. The second, and this is the bigger culprit of where the money goes in a minimum security prison, is cable. Okay. Every inmate has a 19-inch TV in their room and a 32-inch TV in the common room. And it has the best cable package available. I've never had a better cable package than the one that I had when I was in jail. Not only did you have every channel that was HBO related, so I'm talking about like Stars, HBO, the Canadian equivalent of Hulu, which is Crave, but we also have like CNBC or Bloomberg or even every single sports channel that you can think of. So you're able to watch sports, you're able to watch movies, but that's not cheap. And that money comes directly out of our paychecks for doing all the important work in the jail. Like I said, one of the jobs is working at the grocery store. And you might be thinking, why is there a grocery store in jail? Don't you guys just eat the food out of the wagon? Yes, we do that, but not in minimum security. Okay, wagon food is for maximum security and medium security. It is literally a wagon that gets shipped onto your range, and then you get served out of the wagon with a spatula or a scoop or whatever. That's where you have your like mystery meat, slop, people will call it slop with potatoes, slop with rice, slop with whatever. When you're in minimum security, you get to go grocery shopping. So like I said, you get $52 a week. You get a piece of paper that you fill out, and someone on your range is responsible for consolidating all of those orders, taking them up to the grocery store, and going through the aisles, picking stuff out, taking it to the cash register, ringing it out. That money gets deducted from your house budget, and the person who's in charge of that is kind of responsible for doing the house finances to figure out who went over, who went under, but that $52 a week is guaranteed. So even if you go over 1 week, the person in charge of the house finances will just take it off your next week. Not a big deal. The food is pretty good, but even more impressive is all the amenities that we get to cook it with. We have a crock pot, blender, food processor, one of those big mixing bowls that you're able to make flour in. And that's actually a really important one because baking is probably the most popular activity for people to engage with in minimum security prison, and not just because people love baked goods, even though they do. Because you're in minimum security, everybody's always really worried about getting shipped back to medium. It's the worst punishment that they can inflict on you because you've pretty much been given all this freedom and you've jeopardized it, so now you have to go back down a step, and then maybe one day if you're good at medium, you can escalate back down to minimum. But because this is the punishment, people will be on eggshells, making sure that they don't do anything that could be even seen as aggressive. I had one guy tell me after an incident that I'm not allowed to raise my voice because that can be seen as bullying, and bullying can be seen as a sign of aggression, and then you can get shipped out to medium for raising your voice, which was news to me, but I quickly adapted. And I saw that the way that most guys settled their arguments was actually through something called spite baking. What is spite baking? Well, spite baking is when somebody will go through the process of creating some kind of baked good that's delicious. Or maybe even not a baked good, but like a pizza. Some kind of food, right? Some kind of food that has a lot of units that can be dispersed. So let's say somebody makes 24 banana muffins. Okay, and the person who made the muffins, they hate me. So I don't get a muffin. And not only do I not get a muffin, they go out of their way to make sure that I know I don't get a muffin. And they will do this by giving it to this friend of mine, and 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 being like, oh my God, I make the best muffins. Whoever doesn't get my muffins is so jealous. Knowing the whole time that they're talking about me, because I'm the person who didn't get the muffin. So, spite baking. That is how grown-ass men in minimum security deal with conflict. And you might be thinking to yourself, this sounds incredibly soft. And yeah, it is. That's kind of the whole point. There are jails in Canada that are stressful where you can get stabbed, and I have heard really bad stories about them. But that should not really be the norm. And the fact that it is in America doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the case like that in the rest of the world. So minimum security prisons are kind of their own myopic existence. I was actually lucky enough to go to two of them. The first one was Pittsburgh, which was set up like this big cul-de-sac of multicolored houses that were townhouses. So they're 2 stories tall. The top story has 6 rooms for everybody to have their own individual room. They have a shower, they have a toilet, and they have 2 sinks that are on opposite sides of each other, so 2 guys can shave or whatever. And then downstairs, they have another bathroom that's much larger and it's more like wheelchair accessible. So there's again a shower and a sink there, but there's also a lot more room. And downstairs is also where you'll have like your coat check area, kind of like your mud room, which leads out into your living room, which has that 32-inch TV in it and some couches. But the couches are all made with hate. The couches are made to be uncomfortable. They have wooden arms with just big styrofoam cushions plopped onto them. Okay, the amount of effort that went into making these couches was not very great, and I know that because one of my jobs in Pittsburgh was to make the couches. Very simple. You mallet some wood into itself, and you're done. The other couches that we made when I was in Pittsburgh were actually for the Canadian military, who needed some furniture for their base up in Nunavut that season. So whatever job it is that you're doing, you're more or less contributing to another government agency. If you've ever been in a government agency or worked with a government agency and look at some of the tags on stuff, stuff like cubicles, you'll actually see the words corcan, Corcan. Corcan is short for Corrections Canada. And Corrections Canada is the place that I did all my time. It is the federal branch that is responsible for jails and penitentiaries on the federal level. So working at Corcan, very common job in addition to all the other ones I named. Corcan makes, yeah, furniture for other federal agencies, but Corcan also makes the t-shirts that we wear. It makes glasses up in Beaver Creek. It makes the jackets. It makes everything for the things that are being consumed in jail, like the consumable goods in jail are all made by Corcan. It will also be contracted out to federal governments and federal departments, and one time it was actually federally contracted out to the Canada Post, which is a different crown corporation, a corporation owned by Canada. So those big Canadian post bags that they carry all the mail in, those are actually repaired and made by prisoners. How much money do you get paid for all this? Well, you get paid $6.90 a day, and this works out to about $60 every 2 weeks for you to be able to spend on whatever it is that you want that's not groceries. Okay, so you get paid, some of that money goes towards the inmate committee. The inmate committee spends it on repairs and cable, and the $60 you have left you can spend on Canteen. Canteen is not just pop and chips. There is a lot of pop and chips on Canteen, but that's not the only stuff you can get. I'm going to be posting a link to all the stuff that's on the grocery list and the Canteen list in the description so you can check it out. But every 2 weeks, guys line up for the Canteen and get whatever little goods that they need to kind of bring a little bit of humanity into their lives. Whether that's Kawartha Lake ice cream, or cowboy burgers, or cowboy steaks for the barbecue, or even just like hoisin sauce, or something that doesn't really make sense to be on grocery because not enough people will buy it, but some people who buy hoisin sauce buy a lot of it. The same goes for sriracha sauce. Those were the 2 staples of mine. Is I needed my hoisin, I needed my sriracha, and then of course you need the whey protein if you're trying to get jacked. And a lot of people are trying to get jacked because there's not a lot of activities that you can do outside of watching TV, except for going to the gym. So the weight pit in Beaver Creek is amazing. The weight pit in Pittsburgh is pretty terrible. They do have weights that are not attached to anything. That was like a big concern of mine from watching shows like Oz, is that all of the weights are going to be like tethered to the wall. And that is actually true in medium security. It's mostly Smith machines because guys have been known to beat each other up with dumbbells. But in Beaver Creek, you're able to not only use the dumbbells and the Smith machines, but there's actually 2 rooms for you to work out in. There's also a full run gymnasium. And now in Pittsburgh, the gymnasium is amazing. It's like state of the art, brand new. You can set up like pickleball courts on it. But my biggest takeaway from the Beaver Creek gym was that, yeah, it's a little old, but they get the full use of it, right? Like we were running 5-on-5 basketball games at some point. We were running volleyball games, badminton games. Really, sky's the limit with what you're able to do there. And if equipment does go bad, like cardio room equipment, it gets paid for by the same inmate committee union that we had elected. So the way that the Beaver Creek housing was set up is that there were 5 units, and if you look at this picture, you will actually see that the bigger part of it is the medium facility with the 2 fences, and then this small little part right here, that's the minimum side. It's kind of constructed in the same way, just much smaller. I think the capacity is like 200 people, and it was never higher than 170 when I was there for COVID. And the idea being, you walk in and you have 3 ranges on 1 floor. So there's 2 floors, 6 ranges per unit, 5 units. Each range will have around, at most, 7 people. So there's 7 rooms. Nobody really gets double bunked at this point. I may be proven wrong now that COVID is over and they're bringing everybody back who got delayed. But those 7 people have to share, 1 oven, which can be a little tricky, 1 air fryer, a crock pot, a blender, and the fridges. So what ends up happening when there's that many people is people will just have a cabinet space, right? So I'll have my cabinet, I'll have my shelf in the fridge, and then it's up to you to coordinate with other people to be like, hey, are you cooking something? Okay, I'm going to use that stove after you're done. So there's a little bit of organization that goes into it, but it's nothing insurmountable. So pretty much you walk in, you have the dining room, you have the kitchen, you have the living room. This is all like one big mass. And then you have a hallway that ends with a door. And to the left of that door are the bathrooms. The bathrooms in Beaver Creek are much more kind of like a gym where it's 2 showers side by side, 2 toilets side by side, 2 sinks side by side. And it's up to, again, you guys to make sure that everybody's moving around in the way they want. Some guys insist that nobody takes a shit while they shower. Other guys don't really care. Again, a lot of this depends on the people that you're going to be meeting. And then the rooms themselves are actually pretty nice. I would say, I haven't been able to see any pictures of what they look like. I could definitely tell you what they don't look like, and that's the pictures I have been able to find. But you walk in, you have your bed over here, you have a desk with a dartboard, with a cork board that you can kind of take your notes on, and a couple drawers and a closet for you to store your clothes in. If you want to spend all day in your room, there's worse ways to do your time. But if you don't and you want to be active, then it really doesn't matter how big your room is, because all you're really going to be doing in it is sleeping in it and watching whatever it is on TV that you don't want other people to see that you're watching. The really worst part of minimum security are the other people. Like I said, it's a lot of older gentlemen who have finally trickled down through the system after doing something in their like 30s or 40s that constituted a 25-year sentence. Okay. If you're like a professional hitman or someone who literally just does violence for the sake of violence, you're probably never going to be going to minimum security ever. The guys who do end up trickling down are guys who have committed crimes of passion. Crimes of passion are anything where you didn't intend to do it, but you did something really bad. Like you caught your wife cheating and you killed her and you got 25 years. That's inexcusable. It's not good. But you at least get to go to camp for the last, I think, 7 years of your sentence. So those are the types of guys that propagate minimum institutions. It's guys like me who nonviolent first-time drug charge, you're in, you're out. But it's also guys who have been in jail for such a long time that they don't have anything else to really talk about. And they form these like intense bonds and friendships from doing time with all these people who, you know, you guys might do time in this one institution, then one of you gets shipped here, one of you gets shipped here, and then 12 years later, you're reunited in camp. So a lot of the relationships that you're going to stumble upon when you're in jail are already fully formed, and it doesn't even really make sense for you to try to insert yourself in those. I would focus on finding hobbies that are interesting to you and then seeing if there's anybody that you can kind of befriend as a result of those hobbies. Cooking is a big one of those hobbies, okay? Because pooling your resources to make up a meal is like the best way to really build community or build camaraderie or whatever else it is that you're looking for in jail. Because even though everything is given to you, it just puts more of an emphasis on what's been taken from you, right? I mean, if you give someone all the food that they want to eat, all the TV that they want to watch, all of the hobbies and activities that they want to do, it doesn't mean that they're going to be happy. You know, if anything, you're just going to knock off a few tiers on that Maslow's hierarchy of needs until you get to the point where you're like, fuck, I want people. I want to be able to talk to people who don't just talk about what it's like in jail. I know what it's like in jail. I'm in jail, right? So the people in Pittsburgh, which is Joyceville's minimum security prison, they're mostly sex offenders and, cops. There's a lot of cops or people who need to be protected from actual inmates because actual inmates do have a code. Not huge fans of sex offenders, not huge fans of cops. So I was in Pittsburgh for like 9 months and I was mainly writing my book the whole time. And I can tell you the worst experience I had in jail actually happened in Pittsburgh because they put me in one of these townhouses and the cop is like laughing as she puts me in this townhouse. I'm like, what's so funny? She goes, have fun in the Dungeons and Diddlers house. And I'm thinking like, okay, well, why did she call it that, right? Like, what am I about to be walking into? These guys were all the biggest nerds that you'll ever see in your life. Like borderline 4chan incel types come to life. And they were all there for some heinous child pornography shit. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to keep my head down. It's going to be fine. How bad can it be? I do my thing. I have my headphones on the whole time so I don't have to hear them. I don't have to listen to them. I'm cooking my food. I'm eating it upstairs. Okay. About 3 o'clock rolls around. I'm in bed. And all I can hear is these fucking dice hitting the table over and over and over again. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? What are they gambling? These guys don't seem like gamblers. And if they do, why are they doing it so late? I go downstairs and I find them set up Dungeons and Dragons style. Now, it's not literally Dungeons and Dragons. It's a game called Pathfinder, if I remember correctly. But it's pretty much the same idea. It's an imagination-based strategy game where there's a dungeon master and you read your rolls from a book and you get to figure out what turn you're on and what you can do based on the dice. It's insane. It's insane not because of what they're doing. I understand that a lot of people play these games. It's just an insane jail experience to have. I've never encountered someone in the wild playing Dungeons and Dragons before, and here I am in fucking jail having to put up with this shit. So anyway, yeah, that wasn't fun, but for that to be my worst experience in jail is pretty fortunate. The other experiences I had in minimum security are more funny than anything else because you do kind of get to interact with a swath of people that you never would have met. They have the most amazing stories, right? Someone who's from Timmins, who's a break and enter guy, is going to give you hours of content that is funnier than anything you could watch on FX or TikTok, right? Like, there's one story about a guy who did all these robberies and he got caught because he had the only EXO red hoodie in all of Timmins, and they literally found him off that hoodie because the Winners cashier remembered who bought it, and it was just like this small town crime. But while that story was funny, the guy who told it to me was kind of a sad individual because he didn't have a lot of money. He was a little bit older, and he decided that it made more sense for him to spend the winter in minimum security than it did for him to spend it on the streets in Timmins. And really, like, that's the worst part about it. It's not just the fact that the people are annoying or they play Dungeons and Dragons. It's that you're able to see a slice of life that you would have never had access to had you not gone to jail. So that's why I always say the biggest things I learned were humility and patience. Because, everybody thinks that their life wasn't easy. And then you meet someone whose life was borderline hellish, right? And you're wondering, like, what am I even really complaining about? But just because those people had hard lives doesn't mean they're not annoying as fuck, which is why virtue number 2 is patience and just having the ability to deal with them in a way that didn't let on how annoyed you were. But, my whole life, drugs and cocaine in general, because that's what I got arrested for. I got arrested for trying to smuggle 40 kilograms of cocaine into Australia. My whole life, cocaine was always some kind of like fun, expensive, socialite drug, right? It's what famous people did. It's what beautiful people did. And then you see the other side of that. You see the guy who developed such a strong addiction to cocaine that he can't even get high unless he injects it. There's a few guys that I met in jail who actually, upon my release, I tried to get in contact with. I found out that they had overdosed. Those are not people that I would have met in my regular life if it wasn't for the fact that I went to jail. And I'm not saying that going to jail was a good thing. I'm just saying that going to minimum security was definitely a good thing, but there is still an undercurrent of reality that runs through it that I feel like is very important for people to, if not experience, to at least think about. Not every criminal is dangerous. Some of them just are unlucky or they're not strong enough to fight their addiction. And that doesn't mean that they're any worse for it. It just means that they need to be handled a little bit different by you and me. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I forgot about this minimum security video. It's not really something that I wanted to come in here and make super light of, even though it is, for all intents and purposes, very easy. They call it camp for a reason. You can wear your own clothing, you can cook your own food, but you're still in jail and you're still surrounded by the people who make this society weaponized in one way or another. Either they themselves are weaponized by politicians or society has turned them into something evil just by virtue of establishing a framework that doesn't include their specific ideals. I'm blabbering now, but yeah, man, if there's anything else you guys want me to do, I know this video is a little different from the other formats I've done where I'm just kind of like talking to you. I might not even edit this, but if there's anything else you want to hear about, please let me know. I read all the comments. I think my email is accessible too. If you want to know anything about jail that I haven't outlined in any of the videos, please let me know. If you want to know anything about Canadian jail, please let me know. But other than that, like, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. You know what to do. And yeah, man, I hope you guys have a good day.